right now on YouTube. Subscribe to the Rob Dibble Show channel on YouTube and turn on the notifications so you can get new videos when they go live online.
97.9 WUCS. WUCS Winterlocks Hartford. WUCS HT1 Winterlocks. Available everywhere on our free iHeartRadio app.
It's time for more with Rob Dibble and Ben Darnell.
Their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
This is the Rob Dibble Show.
Back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. We are happy to be back at the Bone and Joint Institute after so much time off. And one of our favorite people, she has been with us from the beginning. Stef Bourassa. She is in charge of the rehab facility here, and she is on the set with us now. And Steph, how are you?
Hey, Steph.
I'm great. It's great to be back, guys. I'm glad to see you in the lobby again.
How are you? How are your babies?
The babies are fantastic.
How old are they now?
The twins will be 6 in May, and the baby just turned 2, and they're playing sports, and they're loving it.
What's the 2-year-old playing?
Catch up.
Good
How do the 6-year-olds like her?
They are amazing big sisters to her, which is amazing. And they're very protective, but they let her explore, and it's been awesome.
All right, let's start with this.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like young kids getting used to different motions of the body? Because I've always been taught when you want to learn a language or teach your kids to learn a different language, start them when they're 3 or less, because they'll develop the dialect that is almost unique or that is standard to the culture. I think that with golf. You're a big golfer.
Yeah.
You better have these 6-year-olds swinging clubs. Like, is that the same kind of theory as far as muscle memory and just good form and fundamentals when it comes to sports? Start them young to start that stuff off strong.
Yeah, the ideal mover is actually the 2, 3, 4-year-old, right? So they haven't gone through that huge growth spurt yet where they're having this muscle-to-bone battle where they're feeling really tight or they're feeling really weak. So they just have this natural motor programming in their brain that just allows them to pick up things naturally and just kind of go through the motions. I have one of my 6-year-olds is actually playing violin because it just comes so natural to her to do, the bow hand and the finger picking and everything. So yeah, start them young. And the biggest thing that we're seeing is too early of specialization. And you guys know that. We've had to have these conversations before.
Every year.
And muscle confusion, let kids kind of explore how their bodies move, let them find out what works well for them. There's even more and more literature that's showing that we actually should start them with some strength and conditioning earlier in their growth development, because getting those muscles to feel that load. There's a lot of literature out there about what we call heavy work for toddlers, making them pick up that 2-gallon jug of apple juice and carry it across the kitchen.
Baby strong man.
Their bodies feed off of that, and it gives them that neural impulse to the brain, which makes them feel their body better. And so if they know their body better, they're able to control their body better, and they're able to even verbalize things that are going on with their body, which is huge, as we know, for kids.
Steph, we were just talking to Chris Barrett, dietitian, and you brought something up to me that honestly has been on my mind for years anyway, because I deal with some of my boys that play are overweight and out of shape as I look at them, but I would never think that to body shame them. Tell me about the study that was just done with girls, and what the percentages of them quitting sports because of body shaming.
Yeah, it's actually really scary numbers right now, because if you think about sports gives you self-esteem, it gives you an identity, it gives you a core group of friends, and 45%, based off of some of the work that's coming out of the Center of Appearance Research out of the United Kingdom in partnership with Dove, 45% of females are dropping out of their sports at middle school and high school ages just because of body shaming and appearance issues. And so we at Hartford Healthcare have actually we've taken that lead head on, and we've sent messages out to Dove, and we're becoming a champion of body image issues with female athletes to try to counteract that. And we're working with the Aspen Sports Science Institute as well on the Athlete Bill of Rights. And we want to be the institute of leaders that works with the Athlete Bill of Rights, which is basically you have the right to a safe and secure environment, you have the right to appropriate coaching, you have the right to be able to develop yourself and build yourself. And so we at Hartford Healthcare really believe in that. And I think you're going to hear a lot lot more about, we're going to do a female athlete conference geared just towards female athletes in the fall. And our idea is actually to test athletes, female athletes as well, because we're still seeing this astronomical climb of ACL injuries.
It's going to bring this up.
Yeah, but we're actually also seeing the body image issues, and we're seeing what's called relative energy deficiency in sport, which is having low energy availability to be able to optimize your performance, because people are cutting calories because they're getting body shamed. And we're not talking a thin athlete, we're talking all types of athletes,
right.
Whether it's a discus thrower or a shot put thrower that tends to have more body mass behind. And more literature is actually showing that BMI is not a predictor for injury. It's not even an overall predictor for health disparities either. It's just we have to start having more of these courageous conversations with female athletes.
Well, and please keep us in the loop on all this stuff, because it means a lot to me. I have my daughter's 13 now, and social media is a killer right now. The Snapchatting, the body shaming, just shaming in particular is just god awful. And it's like, coming out of COVID, you would think they'd be more accepting of each other and want to get. It's almost even more vicious because you can get on your phone and say mean things. Let me ask you about that. I mean, bone density, growth, things like that. 18 to 22 years old before you stop growing. How awful would that be to not getting the right nutrition because someone's body shaming you and trying to develop a physique that could maybe get you to high school or college sports?
Yeah, we're actually seeing those repercussions earlier in their late life. So if you are cutting calories at 14, 13, 12 years old, and you're post-menarche, so you're starting your menstrual cycle, your body starts to starve for these. And so our relationship with our endocrinologists and a lot of our dietitians is really trying to mitigate that earlier, because we're seeing earlier onset of stress reactions in athletes, and female athletes especially. We're seeing bone mineral density changes. It used to be this fad of I could work out long enough and hard enough to skip my period. Well, that's not actually a good thing, because now your hormones are all out of whack. And if you want to optimize how you are performing as an athlete, you need to hit that cycle regularly, and you need to be eating the amount of nutrition. That doesn't mean that you should be eating Cheetos and those kinds of things to meet those caloric needs, but meeting with Chris and Jillian, our dietitians, and really getting the foundations of nutrition so that you have a healthy lifestyle, not necessarily when you're 18 to 22 when you think you're immortal, but when you get up into your 30s and 40s and you look back and you go, man, I wish I had done that then.
You're always on it. Like, you always teach us things 6 months to a year before they actually happen in reality and society. Not only are you guys one of the best places to go to for any kind of surgery, post-op, any kind of rehab, you guys are the leader, I would say, in some of the new stuff, the new trending things that are going on, and you're always learning, yourself and your staff, always learning the new tricks and tips and the trades of physical therapy. Blood flow restriction was something that you were talking about a year ago, and we know it from our friend Diamond Dallas Page and his power cuffs that he's been selling across the planet and having great success. We went in here, a week ago, we did a tour of the place. It felt like everyone was on some kind of blood flow restriction plan that they were doing on their workouts. Talk about blood flow restriction, what it is, and how it's progressed in just a year and blown up as a trending thing in PT.
Yeah, it actually started off as Eastern medicine. A Japanese scientist identified that his calves were growing bigger just by sitting down in the stooped position. So he wanted to research it, and he started to apply tourniquets and recognized that he was getting hypertrophy because it was pooling the nutrient-dense blood in the area. So the muscles were pulling that nutrient and then giving that oxygen, giving that blood flow right to those muscle fibers, which then helped recruit more fibers and made this hypertrophy. So then we expanded that into the military. And so we were using it with a lot of our wounded warriors out in Texas. They were doing a lot of literature, and Owens Recovery Sciences really kind of led the way. And there's a lot of great educational opportunities out there now. And so we were using it on those that were wounded in war, and being able to get them stronger and more functional and independent. And we're talking individuals that may have lost parts of their limb, had shrapnel, that just weren't getting stronger, and we were able to put these tourniquets on and be able to, in a controlled fashion, make them stronger. So fast forward, we started to do this literature with ACLs, because one of the biggest things with ACLs is the inability to get the quad strength back right off the bat. And we said, well, it worked for ACLs. let's do it on shoulders. Let's do it on Tommy John. Let's do it on all of these different body parts and see if that decreases the inability of muscles to get recruited after they've had surgery, so they've been inhibited, and can we make it stronger, and can we do it as a preventative measure. Now I will say there's some sciences out there that are not best practice. Right, once you're applying a tourniquet, you have to do it in a safe fashion, and so that's where we've really kind of led the way, is making sure that we're following the right protocols and using these protocols to get strength back.
Yeah, explain that, because, like, if somebody's been injured, to keep them from bleeding to death, bleeding out, you apply a tourniquet. Now you're saying that, some ways to rehab, some ways to work out, like Diamond Dallas Page, to get more out of your workout. There's the blood flow restriction. Tell people, you're an expert, you're a professional. It's different than somebody at home saying, hey, let me take a belt and put it and tighten it down.
Glad we're having this conversation because I had some ideas about workouts tonight.
Exactly.
So good.
Exactly. For the people like Ben or the youth that are listening,
I'm serious.
This is not something you should go off and just start doing.
And we've all done that as kids, right? Where we've taken the rubber band and gone over and over and over again.
My mom has
the tip of your
taught
finger
me not to do any of this
stuff.
stuff.
So what blood flow restriction does is in a percentage, we occlude the blood flow. So we get your baseline of what is your blood pressure today that would be 100% occlusion, which is a tourniquet. Stop the Bleed campaign is a huge thing that was founded here at Hartford Healthcare to put tourniquets on to stop people from bleeding out from injuries. Same technology, but in a controlled fashion. So for the upper extremity, you have smaller blood vessels. I don't want 100% occlusion of your small vessels, because now you're looking at my finger turning purple in a short amount of time and an injury, right?
Right.
But in a 40 to 60% of occlusion pressure, so that's where we work for upper extremity, is between the 40 and 60%. And so you taking a belt and putting it on at home, you're not going to know what that pressure is, whereas we do. We measure it. We either use a Doppler so that we can measure the total occlusion and we use calculations, or we have technology that actually does it for us, much like a blood pressure cuff. In the lower extremity, we're between 60 and 80% of the total occlusion pressure. And we know that it's more uncomfortable when we get to 80%, and so we might start you down at the 60% and work our way up. The effects of it are twice a week for 6 weeks. You can see hypertrophy pretty immediately, and it's within that range, in that controlled range that your physical therapist or somebody who's certified can help you with.
It's amazing.
Don't do it at home.
No, you are correct.
That's why you have the Bone and Joint Institute.
Another thing you guys have that you don't have any house unless you are an uber cajillionaire to have one of these things is the Motion Lab. Mm-hmm. Another thing that we tried out about a week ago. This guy's tried it out a bunch of times in different forms and fashions. How much do you use that? How helpful is that Motion Lab for those at home that don't know what this is? It's basically a diagram of your human body and all your motions to a pinpoint accuracy, with all the calculations as far as your torque or your rotation of all your joints. Talk to the people about how that is so beneficial for you on rehab and post-ops.
Yeah, so we actually had a case earlier this week where I was looking back at my notes of an individual who was coming for a second ACL, and we had done their testing, and we had flagged them and said, you need to really focus on the other side. The other side is generating way too many forces, as according to our Motion Lab, and so and sure enough, we were able to identify that this individual was at risk for tearing the opposite side. And we know that there's only 25% of ACLs return to full sport at the prior level of their competition or better. We know that there's a 75% chance of you tearing the opposite side or re-tearing, depending on the time frame of your return. So we use the Motion Lab to help us guide and give the docs all the information that they need to be able to clear somebody to return to sport as best as possible. And that's not just ACLs. We do running analyses, golf analyses, which I know both of you have done.
Yep.
And we're able to correlate that with how you're moving and what your forces are and what you're generating, and not just for injury but for optimizing performance. We've seen a few professional athletes that have come through here that are soccer players and golfers that we've been able to put them through a series of testing and be able to give that information to their athletic trainers, to their strength coaches, to their medical staff team, to be able to keep them on the field or on their course of play a little bit better. So and research, we're doing a lot of research in there as well.
So the head of physical therapy here at Bone and Joint Institute, Stef Bourassa, is joining us on stage. And let me ask you about some of the injuries that we've seen recently. Like even in the Super Bowl, guys warming up on the sidelines, he takes one step, he blows out his Achilles. Could it have been his tape? Could it have been the shoe he was wearing? I mean, what are the causes of some of these like accidents we see that are non-contact related injuries?
So usually at that point of the season, it's workload. It's the amount of reps they've done.
Fatigue?
It's the fatigue factor.
17 weeks.
Yep, it is. It's the workload, and it's what they're doing in the out of their practice sessions. It's what they're doing in the weight room. It's how they're eating. It's how they're sleeping. It's how they're hydrating. All of those come into play. Now, shoe does actually come into play as well. There's a huge literature going on right now that's looking at footwear in female soccer players, and can we design a cleat to better fit a female soccer player to decrease these incidences?
I've said this for years. I still 100%. Think the same thing with basketball sneakers.
Yeah.
I haven't seen an improvement in the 30-plus years that I was an athlete to where we are today.
Yeah, and so they're really starting to look at it, and they're partnering with like us with the Motion Lab to be able to really dive into that a little bit more. But it is a lot of wear and tear, and there's some cool technology out there that we've actually now implemented to look at workloads. And we have a couple of our Trinity College kids that's wearing this technology that we're able to flag our athletic trainers and say, hey, their workload threshold is too high. Pull them out of the game right now. And they're able to pull them out and sit them and rest them. And then we go, okay, activate them with these 3 exercises, send them back in. Boom, they're right back where they should be and so we're watching these trends and seeing what these injury risk factors are. Now, am I 100% accurate? No, but I have seen these trends, and we're able to work with our teams to say that. With the Trinity hockey team was plagued with hip flexor issues and groin issues last year. We were able to test them and use that data to get the strength and conditioning coach to periodize differently for them going into the season, and now they're number 1 and they're winning games, and we're not seeing them in our doors for injuries. We're seeing them just to say, hey, congratulations, this is awesome work, right? So there's a lot of factors that are going into injuries, and I think having the team approach is definitely the most important way.
I was telling John, who's been on the first trip here at the Bone and Joint, is we haven't been back here since COVID, and I was like, dude, you don't know who's going to be walking in and out of this place. Could be a PGA player, could be somebody from the NBA just stopping in, it could be a Hartford Athletic, could be Trinity College. You guys do so much work with so many different athletes and so many teams. Yeah. Has that relationship what has that been over the last couple of years, or at least decade? Because we talked about this, I think, the first time we talked to you, as far as get out of here. We go win the game and then we'll talk about it. How has that relationship even gotten better, or I guess maybe more educated than it has been in a decade?
We have a little bit of a notoriety that's following us now. We have people that come from all over the country and do a rehab stint with us, and then they get to their point where they're like, okay, I'm comfortable, and I'm going to go back to my PT or my medical staff, my medical team, which is pretty cool. It's really cool to see the team light up when they're making those impacts on people. But it's all the way down to even the high school and middle school level that we really work well with getting athletes to prevent those injuries, but
prevention,
but getting them on the field and getting them more confident. I think I tested a kid today, and by the 3rd or 4th rep, I was like, how's the psychological suck right now? Mentally, I just saw him light up and go, I can do this. I'm not going to be at risk of this injury if I do it right, and I do it. And so you just see the confidence start to build, and that's really what kind of makes our job really cool.
Well, we hope you keep us included with the whole women's thing, though, because this is huge. In my world, as a father, see it with all the other women athletes that I'm around.
Once a week.
It can be even
once
cheerleading.
Yeah.
Whether she's doing the tennis or the cheerleading and lacrosse, I mean, they're so vicious to each other. That it's definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, well, and that conference is going to be geared towards parents and coaches and the athletes themselves too. So we're going to do the clinical stuff where our teams are going to go and learn some things from world-renowned presenters. But my biggest thing that we need to educate now is the parents and the coaches and the athletes themselves of what is an ACL tear, why are women at risk for it and females at risk for it, what is relative energy deficiency in sport, and how do we counteract that? And I mean, we have psychologists, we have the dietitians, we have the world-class team here to really help Dove and kind of decrease those numbers of 45% dropout rates to lower, because sports is an important thing for people to learn and be able to do, and that self-confidence that just comes out of it.
Our friend Aubrey Griffin tearing her knee up. She will be back next year. Another person who made that announcement last week, Paige Beckers. Yeah. She's went through a bunch of injuries. I know you watch UConn women's basketball. How do you think Paige has been moving since these injuries?
She's
like what you see?
Yeah, she's looking a lot more fluid, for sure. I could see the confidence working. I know that her team is behind her, and she's putting in the work, and we like to see that. We like to see people rebound and really go after it. And one of the biggest things, we know the number one predictor for an injury is a previous injury, but also the hesitancy. As soon as you start to mentally guess yourself, those are when those injuries are going to happen too. And she's out there and she's rocking it, and good for her. We're proud to see her representing UConn so well, and we're looking forward to her sticking around for a little while and hopefully getting some more championship banners up in that area. That would be great.
Well, God bless you, Steph. Thank you so much. And Mom, with the 3 kids at home, we really love talking to you.
Thanks
and
for
having you
me,
part
guys.
of the show.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk some more about getting back here to the Bone and Joint Institute and me coming off of my little vacation. We'll talk about all that stuff when we come back on your afternoon drive with Rob and Ben live from the Bone and Joint Institute on Fox Sports Radio.